Today on the podcast, we have Casi Selby. Not long ago, Cassie was injured during a medical procedure. When some of her friends spoke with her, Cassie truly believed she was killing herself one pill at a time. The pain that she endured kept Cassie tied to an epidural while doctors tried to figure some things out. 3 years later, she was helped by loved ones to obtain her medical card in Oklahoma. With one single dosage of a concentrate, she was able to see what life she has missed out on because of legality issues and the ability to choose the proper medication for herself. Now Cassie is pain-free. She is an outstanding advocate and influencer within the cannabis community. She has helped raise funds and much, much more for cancer and research centers. She's an all-around wonderful human being. Cassie, welcome to the show.
So sweet. It makes me want to cry a little bit.
Don't cry, not right off the bat.
Yeah, wait.
I don't feel like I'm really that special. I feel like I'm just a normal person.
No, you are a very special person. And from what I hear, you've done a lot for the community.
Yeah, I try because this is so important for people to understand. I grew up, I was born in 1982, so I grew up right in that generation where we were really taught that marijuana was a drug that was terrible. I was completely brainwashed. So I'm actually one of those rare people who never even tried marijuana until it was legalized here in Oklahoma. Because of my surgery and the pain that it caused, I was on opioids. I was on the highest dose available of fentanyl, along with a lot of other medication. And I was still suffering from something that's called suicide pain, which is basically pain that hurts so bad that it makes you want to kill yourself. I was in a wheelchair, and keep in mind, I'm a mom. I have 2 children. So my life was completely changed and altered due to the injuries that I sustained during the surgery. And once I remember thinking, the only way that I'm going to survive this is if something else happens. And it just so happened that during that time, 788 was really picking up steam. So then I started picking up steam for 788. And on the day that it passed, I just literally remember sitting in my office and just crying for a good solid hour because it gave me something that I hadn't had since my surgery began, and that was hope.
Yeah.
Hope that I would be able to get better, hope that I would be able to walk again, hope that I would be able to be a good mom again, hope that I could be a good wife, hope that I could give back to my community in the way that I had been doing before. So once everything was passed, I thought, you know what? Okay, this is the time. I talked to my doctor about it, and he said, yes, I think this is what you need to do. This would be better for you than what you're doing right now. I'm worried that you're going to overdose as it is.
That's
so,
awesome of him.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so typically you don't run into that
sure, it's not something,
type of conversation, and that's really cool.
Right, not something that we hear every day for sure.
Really? Okay. Well, and then consider the fact that my doctor was out in western Oklahoma, so even a more conservative area to make a very long story short, there was a lawsuit for the city of Weatherford because they wouldn't allow us to have dispensaries, within certain areas, etc. Yeah, for my doctor to say that, and he even had told me before 788 passed that, you might have to move. You might have to move. That might be the only way that you're going to be able to find pain relief legally.
I bet he felt like it. I bet imagine how he felt telling you that. Telling a patient
Absolutely.
that.
Sure.
Absolutely. And this is my primary care physician who has taken care of me for a very long time and has watched me go through all of these, well over 10 different procedures and surgeries to try to get this problem fixed. And he's the one prescribing me the opioids and saying, this really isn't ideal. This isn't working for you. You've got to find something different.
Well, good for him.
Yes.
That's one thing, but unfortunate
Right.
that you had to find that out.
Sure.
And be told that you might have to move. So.
Yeah, and to think about the amount of money I was spending going to specialists to try to find out, pain solutions. We considered implanting a spinal cord stimulator in my back to hope that might help with some of my nerve injuries. They're all from the waist down, basically. And we're talking like $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 when the thing that I needed to help me with my pain is growing in dirt.
Sure.
And that's all it took. And that's incredible.
Well, sure. And to see, fortunately for you, the timing was perfect. I use that word.
No, it was.
But, for so many people that have probably went ahead and gone through with a spinal procedure.
Yeah.
Right.
Therapy that, like you said, really could have started somewhere else, somewhere a little more holistically. To me, it kind of just takes my breath away.
Yes. And the thing that I want you to make sure that everyone understands is the most important part about this medically is learning how to advocate for yourself. If you feel like something's not right or something's not working for you, then speak up. If you feel like, this opioid that I've been taking for the last 10 years really isn't doing anything except for just making me want it more and more, then maybe it's time to switch to something else. And I will tell you that when I was able, of course, to come off all of my opioids, and I was able to do that thanks to marijuana, because of the marijuana, I didn't feel the effects of the withdrawal that I would normally feel going through a fentanyl withdrawal.
Absolutely.
And it makes a huge difference.
Sure. And did you find any particular terpenes or anything like that helped you as far as withdrawals? Because I've always seen caryophyllene, really helps with alcohol addictions and opioid addictions to kind of help curve and take the edges off.
Sure. Yeah. As far as terps go, so considering the fact that I was just a very beginning, again, I had just started using marijuana, so I had a journal and I was trying to journal everything down. But what I ended up finding out was the most effective for me was to go to a dispensary called the Med Shed that the owner knew enough about the product where he could teach me about the different terpenes, and based on my symptoms, he was able to find the terpenes for me and give me the product that I needed, instead of me having to go back through and do all of the research and figuring out all of that hard stuff. So I would say, in my situation, having a good person that was knowledgeable about marijuana and a good bud tender and a good shop owner made all of the difference.
Yeah, but see, the thing is like we keep saying that, and you hear that, but how does one tell? If you've never been in that sort of situation, if you've never been in the cannabis world,
Sure.
and you're wanting to get into this and explore this medicine, how would you go about doing that?
Right. Well, and that's exactly the situation that I was facing.
Yeah.
So step one is find a friend that knows what they're doing when it comes to marijuana. I hope you have one. If you don't, there's tons of online communities, Facebook groups and everything else that can help you get started. Once you find that, you use that person to help teach you along the way what you need to do, and then you have to advocate for yourself and go out and find someone that can help you learn those things. If you can't find someone, you have got to spend the time researching yourself. This is medication, and every strain, every terpene, every single part of this medication is different for every single person.
Right.
So, for example, I'm someone that struggles with high anxiety because I've been through hell. So I can't have anything that's a sativa. That's just a no-go for me. And those are things that I've had to journal and write about and keep in constant detail reporting for myself so that I know what my body needs.
Right.
And I can explain that to others.
Well, and I think you guys both bring up, James brings up a good point in where kind of a starting point. And I think that, it is great whenever you're able to reach out to some of those people, in the cannabis community, whether it be a friend, a bud tender, listening to a podcast, advocates.
Absolutely.
But you did touch on something too, and I think there's something kind of primal in all of us, whether we be, for yourself, Cassie, was in the pharmaceutical field, and you talked about whenever something just isn't working for you, you kind of do have to ask yourself those questions of things that I'm taking or regimens that I'm on. Are they serving me, or are they serving a business model, or are they serving someone's quota? And so I think that's a good place to start. But I think James brings up a great point in that. But when we're talking about an industry that's in its infancy, like cannabis, is when you have a wealth of knowledge that's out there, you also have a wealth of misinformation, and trying to dig through that stuff. And I think that's what James is getting to is, what are these life rafts that we're able to cling on to? And, someone coming from dispensary manager standpoint and dealing with patients every day, labs, make sure that is good, clean medicine. One, that's a start, because that's what this was all about to begin with. That's the essence of this law. So I believe in that, looking at those labs, and not just that, but there are so many apps out there. Once you know the names of terpenes and know the names, just knowing the names of strains, terpenes, and cannabinoids.
Yeah, so just that entry level of being able to find the names.
Right. Finding the name, knowing the names of the cannabinoids, terpenes, and, not even really the strains, but can kind of start the wheels turning as being able to find a lot of that information that's out there.
Yeah. I mean, so
absolutely. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, we keep talking over one another. You're the guest, please.
We're excited to talk to each other.
I know it is. It's very exciting. But if you think about everything, it's like anything else. It's community, right?
Sure.
So people needing somewhere to go, someone might go to church or to a community dinner, or something regularly every time, or even family or whatever. So you're seeking out, and you don't know where to go. You have a white coat telling you that you need to do something. What are you going to do?
Absolutely.
Right. So now what you're forced with is that misinformation. Most likely, because you've got Uncle Bob that used to smoke weed back in the 80s,
right?
That knows how to roll a joint by, you know what I mean?
Sure,
that guy.
Sure,
but then you also have
medicine.
Then you also have I know everything about this because I have learned everything. The engineering type that really actually doesn't know the starting point.
Right.
So that starting point is actually reaching out to the community. Sometimes it could be a gamble, but don't reach out to Uncle Bob, okay?
Right.
Reach out to the community.
Sure.
The community that we have here, and the community that I was able to find, even in Western Oklahoma, was able to support me through this journey. Had it not been for that community and literally, you guys, I do not know how to explain this except to say that it was instant family. Once I went and met that one person that was in the community, I was instantly pulled in and given a big old hug and said, "Hey, we're here for you. Call us if you have any questions. If you have a freak out, call us. When you get started, we'll be there for you. If you need help with anything, we'll be there for you." And those people exist everywhere.
They do.
You just have to find them.
And very particularly in this cannabis community. I mean, they're everywhere.
Yes.
I learned that very early on in the Oklahoma cannabis community by someone that I'd like to point out is a very, very special human being that let me know that all I had to do is reach out, which is Pamela Street. I don't know if you know her. But
I don't, but shout out to you, Pamela.
Yeah, she's a great person, great human being, and I remember talking to her on the phone one time, sort of about a lot of different things, and it was a couple of years ago. And she said, it's really something whenever you just reach out and people help, and it means something, and it really does. It means something, and you'll find that in this community. I mean, you really will.
Absolutely.
Well, and it happens so organically too.
Does.
It's not something that ever feels forced. It's not something that you feel like there's an ulterior motive to it. And I mean, I'm not saying that those people out there don't exist, and I'm not saying that this industry is perfect either, but it does. Like, you know, Cassie's story and James's story are stories that we hear every single week because this community is an open arms community.
Yeah.
It really is.
I like that too. There's not a line that you have to go sign up in. You know, there's not a time that you have to be somewhere. There's nothing. There are people that will talk to you all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the amazing thing about it is once you're in the community, suddenly, and once you've learned how to medicate yourself and works good for you, you start looking at other people and making that offer, saying, hey, listen, I've noticed that you've been talking to me about your pain and struggles and all this stuff. Have you ever considered using marijuana? I would be happy to help you if you want to get started, if you want to get your card. I know how to help you apply. I know how to help you with your first dose to see how things go. Like, once you've been in the community, you suddenly want to reach out as part of the community to help others.
It's the ultimate form of passing it forward, you know?
Right. And again, it happens so organically. Like, that's what I was saying, is you just kind of naturally feel yourself wanting to tell people, you know, it's funny that you mentioned that, Cassie. My wife and I were just recently, we grabbed lunch. As we pull up into the restaurant, we see a guy with a neck brace on changing his tire. My wife looks over at me, and she's looking at me like, seriously, you're not going to let this guy do this. So, of course, we get out, we offer our help, and as he's sitting there and telling me he was wounded in Serbia, so he's a veteran, and he's sitting there and he's talking, this is a long time he's been dealing with, this is his 20-something surgery, and I literally tell him, I'm like, hey, have you ever tried cannabis? I literally look up, the guy is gone, and it's like he does not want to talk about cannabis, but I'm sitting here kind of like shoving it down his throat, and my wife looks at me and she was just like, I love that you took the opportunity while you were changing someone's tire. And you're just like, hey, have you tried cannabis? He's like, no, I'm just trying to get my tire changed and get out of here.
He's like, this dude's trying to give me weed, man. What's going on?
So it turned from good deed to, hey, would you like to buy some weed, I guess is what this guy saw.
I've got it set.
I love it.
So, and the funny thing, it was a barbecue joint, so the meat wasn't the only thing that was trying to get smoked that day. I obviously was trying to.
Exactly.
Right. But, I mean, and just in all seriousness, no, it does bring up a great point that you kind of naturally just find yourself singing the praises of it.
Yeah, it's got to get annoying, too.
Right. That's what I mean. It's the guy at the barbecue joint.
It's like the dude that goes on a diet and loses a bunch of weight.
Right.
It's like, get out of here.
Any person that's ever done vegan or CrossFit.
But no, on a... Yes.
Right.
Yes. We get it. You can climb a house and lift a car. You're a badass.
I think, too, part of the community is, once you're in the community, you start to see other changes that are happening. So, like, for example, the first time I saw a child take cannabis and smile for the first time,
right.
That kind of stuff changes your ethos in your life and how you think about things and how you think about others. And you start to realize, like, wow, we've really been screwed over for a long time. And now we finally have the chance to take things into our own hands and make sure that we're getting the medicine.
It's like I say this all the time. I don't care who screwed me over. We were screwed over. I don't care who the hell it was.
Right.
We're screwed over. And it's time to freaking stop this.
Sure.
It's time to stop it.
Yes.
Well, and that's what I love about what Cassie says, is because you're right, because it turns into more than just that moment. Do you know what I mean? Yes, that moment opened up your eyes, and you had that little, we talk about on here, light bulb moment.
Right.
But you automatically want to start sharing it, and I think that is something different. I mean, I have revelations throughout the day all the time, but I generally don't share them.
Yeah.
Again, like going back to James, like saying that sometimes we get annoying. Every time I hit a revelation with cannabis, I'm texting, I'm telling people, I'm talking. So you kind of organically just want to share it, because you know what being in the dark is like. That's what I feel like where this comes from.
Yeah. So whenever let me go back and say, and what I meant is like, it could seem that way to those people that just really don't want to even open their eyes to it or hear it, or just want to move on and not even bother with it. They think it's just a bunch of potheads wanting to get high.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's what I meant.
Sure.
You know, of course, I'm going to be a little bit annoying to you whenever I find stuff, because I'm going to tell you all the time, Josh.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you've already told me that, you know, you and your wife have conversations about me texting you at 5 o'clock in the morning about something that I found out. I mean, come on. I get it.
Sure.
But I can't help it.
Right. And I share your passion. So for me, you know,
I just want to help people.
Absolutely.
Man.
I mean, it is, and I like that. But again, that's what I love about this, and I love, and like I was saying, is I love how those moments turn into something like, and then like James was saying, that it becomes where we have to pay it forward.
Yeah.
And it does. It almost feels like an obligation.
It's like
it does.
It's almost like it's like, why wouldn't you pay this forward? You know, it's
that's what I mean.
You almost get
Sure.
Yeah, exactly. And you guys, 2/3 of Americans support legalization anyway. So you didn't have your tire changing guy just happened to be that other 1/3.
Right. Or he was just really confused.
Yeah, or like what's going on. But you know, you've got people in your life already, for your listeners that are maybe new to this, that probably are using marijuana. You just aren't aware of it. So for example, most people in my life aren't aware that I use it, except for the fact that I talk about it all the time.
Right.
You know, and I talk about it very casually. My son is 14. He knows that I use marijuana as a medication. It's medicine. I have a 21-year-old daughter who's in college and lives at home. She also knows that this is medication, and this is not something that I'm doing just to get high.
Right.
So it really didn't even come to light to a lot of my, let's say, like social friends, like, you know, friends that you're friends with but that don't know you like really, really personally,
right,
until COVID happened, because we started having like these Zoom happy hours with, you know, other parents so that we could talk to each other.
Right. And just have some sanity.
Right.
And they were drinking, but I can't drink because of my medication, so I was smoking pot. So I just told them at the beginning, you guys have your happy hour, you're going to notice my nose is turning red, and it's because I'm sitting here smoking pot.
Right.
So, I mean, let's just be open and honest about it.
Yeah, sure.
For those of you that are comfortable with it, because that's how you find out who you can go to if you have those questions.
Yeah, absolutely. And the cool thing that I've noticed too, I wrote a little bit about this, but you know, it really is coming around. I mean, people are becoming accepting of this, but we just really need to make sure it's accepting in the right way.
Right.
Exactly.
Well, and I mean, you know, here's the thing.
Well, we can't make sure of anything. But, but in our circle, you know, in our
it comes back to advocacy and spreading the message that you think needs to be heard. But I mean, I think that something that I love that Cassie brought up was, you know, and I don't know if anyone else heard this, but you having that open discussion with a 14-year-old and a 21-year-old, a lot of people gasp about it. But let me tell you what I think will be a derivative of these conversations. If your daughters ever hit these crossroads, or your kids ever hit these crossroads, when I say health issues, you want to know one of the first places they're going to look for a medicine? It's not going to be at Walgreens. It's not going to be from the pusher man in the white coat. I mean, I know I say that.
Or the pusher man on the corner.
Right, at the barbecue joint.
Yeah.
Right. But, I mean, it's some place that they may start to look for their health journey holistically.
Yep.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I feel like as a parent, I grew up. Okay, we're going to dive into something a little deep. I'll try to make it as short as possible.
No,
let's get dirty.
No, okay. All the time in the world.
Don't get nervous. Don't get nervous. This is something I'm comfortable talking about. So, I grew up in a home with an abusive mother who also happened to be an alcoholic and also happened to smoke pot. It took me, and so that's where, you know, some of that brainwashing started, you know, really confirming to me that, oh man, pot is bad. Look at how evil my mother is. And it took me a long time to figure out that pot didn't make my mom bad, my mom was bad and she happened to smoke pot.
Yeah.
So, and I was aware that she was smoking pot the whole time that I was a child. So for me, it makes more sense to be open and honest with my children and say, hey, look, this is getting me off all of these bad medications. I'm not in my wheelchair anymore, and marijuana has really helped me be your mom again instead of being sick all the time and being surgery after surgery and stuck in bed all of the time. Now I could be your mom again. And from 14, well, I mean, my son is 14 now, but he would have been, I mean, much younger, 12 or 11 when I started using marijuana. But I would even bring him with me to patient drives so that he could understand how important this was for other people medically, and so that he could see the diversity that was there, from 80-year-old women to children in wheelchairs at our patient
Absolutely.
drive. He knows how to submit a patient application because he comes to so many patient drives, because I want him to understand how important this is. Why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I want him to know what changed my life and made me a good mom again?
Exactly. It's the same as working for a charity or you know, doing some things for showing your children how to do good things for others.
Right. Well, and two, it paints two completely different pictures. In Cassie's mind, when she was a child, she saw cannabis as a certain thing because of what she saw with her mother. Mm-hmm. Your son, your kids get to see how cannabis is changing people's lives,
right, and how it's supposed
and how it's helping. So in one, and I mean, and I know that, you know, as parents, we don't like to pat ourselves on the back. So Cassie, I'll do it for you. But in a single generation, you've broken a generational curse, and you have shown your kids the exact opposite, a complete 180 of what cannabis was to you as a kid. And I mean, so if you won't pat yourself on the back, I'll do it for you.
Cycle.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
gotta break it.
Well, and that's where our kids, you know, really, you know, I've got a 16 and a 21-year-old too. Our kids are going to be the first generation of people to possibly look at this purely as a medicine. And if you don't think that starts right in your home, you are completely mistaken and misguided.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's also a flip-flop to that coin. There's also going to be a large number of people that grow up and believe that it's okay to get stoned legally.
Absolutely.
And no medicinal purposes, but yet they really don't even understand that they are taking medicine.
Right.
Which is great.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That they will end up better for it.
Well,
and at least now it's clean.
Well, and I saw something, you know, in that vein, I saw something the other day that said, list on one hand the number of medicines that don't have a warning that this could possibly kill you. There's one.
Right.
Cannabis.
One.
Right.
So that's what I mean. You know, there is no, I mean, yes, we don't want people to think that this medicine is to sit around getting stoned, but what's the byproduct of it? What you know what I mean?
Because of cannabis, I will absolutely use cocaine. And then from cocaine, I will absolutely go to heroin. And then from heroin, hopefully hover around near death or somewhere in between an acid trip, somewhere in there.
Sure.
But it was all due to marijuana. Because it's a gateway drug.
Right.
Correct?
Right.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. That's what I mean, is being able to teach our kids something differently, though.
I'm sorry.
Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no. Well, and here's the other thing, too, with my particular marijuana use that some of your listeners might find helpful, especially if they have younger children and they're worried that it's going to affect their children. I generally only use marijuana right before I go to bed. So it's like 10 o'clock, and then my son knows from like 10 to midnight that's the perfect time to get me to watch him play games, you know, on the PlayStation. So I watch a lot of Zelda and a lot of other games from 10 to 12. And then I go to bed, and that's it. And so it's I'm not a different person. I'm still me. I just laugh a lot more. And the best part about it is the next morning I wake up and I'm still not in pain.
Yeah.
You know?
It's
great. That's all it takes
right.
for me.
Or feel terrible because of what you were taking to get rid of the pain.
Right. Well,
I mean,
it is what it is. I look at this situation as it's better that it happened to me than somebody else, because I'm so comfortable using my voice to speak out and help others and reach out and try to bring more people into this circle that I don't even want to call it a circle. I want to call it a family, into this family of support that exists wherever you're at.
right.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's weird to think about, like, those people that are I'm gonna get a little weird, sorry.
You don't take it weird.
You look at people and those people that just endure things, like kids that will just sit there and allow the dentist to do what they need to do, or their haircut, or whenever you're a teenager, you just do what you've got to do. You join the military or something like that, and you go through, but you just endure. Those people are the ones that we need for these. I don't mean to joke, but those people are the strong people that can have a voice. Those people need to get out and be that voice for those in need. And you are one of those. That's great. I don't know exactly where I was going there, but I do want to praise you, but it's an interesting point.
Everybody, make sure you're registered to vote. Make sure you're registered.
Yeah.
Vote.
But yeah, but seriously though, to echo those sentiments, James is right. If we need those strong characters in our advocacy groups. We need more Cassies. We need more Jameses. We need people out there that are vocalizing this stuff, and more than anything, making it. Going back to the Zoom thing, I loved as she was sitting there telling me this story. I was like, when does she pull the bong up in the camera frame? Because if people can wear their Wine Wednesday shirts, I'm tired of it. They're stupid shirts anyway. Get your bongs out for your Zoom happy hours, please. And I don't mean it in this stoner culture way or anything like that, but some things aren't accepted until they're put in front of people bluntly. Absolutely. And we're here to stay. We've said that since day one. And like I said, same thing that James said. Thank you for being that person that's just like, this is my medicine. This is what helps me. Deal with it.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, that's just how it is. That's just how it is for me. And if anybody ever questions it, I usually just pull up pictures from when I was in the wheelchair, and that's usually enough. Or I start, explaining in detail about my surgery, and they don't want to hear about that part. So, usually they're okay.
Sure, yeah. After you've told them about the spine implant that they were thinking about doing on you.
Yes, it's so important that we are upfront and honest about this as using it as a medication, because we really need to break the stigma that is behind using marijuana as a medication anyways, for that 1/3 left or anybody that's not sure. When they see someone that they know really well, that they know to be a good person, that they know to be a likable person, open up to them and say, hey, this is what I'm using for medication and this is what helps me, it's going to help change their minds a little bit too. And as we just have to take these baby steps one at a time until we get people to recognize that this is medicine and this is what we need to live. And so there's no reason to think any less of anybody who's using it.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point too, baby steps. And we need to remember those baby steps are big baby steps. Every step that we take along this journey right now is very crucial, and every step counts. So just even it's a little thing, but it's a big thing that you can do. Yeah. It really is.
Well, and I completely agree. Just having those conversations with a friend or a coworker or something like that, it is. It's absolutely. So if you think you're not doing your part and having that one conversation and, it's just not, you're changing something, you're helping. So please keep having those conversations.
You don't have to be part of the media. You don't have to own a dispensary. You don't have to be, you don't have to do anything. You just have to want to help people.
Sure. And not just that,
Absolutely.
but I love and I think that even if you're not a user, you can support a user.
Yes.
You can support someone who uses medical marijuana.
Yeah, there's a meme or something going around right now. I've seen that on the internet, and it's very true. You know, just because you don't use doesn't mean that you don't
support.
You can still support people that need this for medicine.
Sure.
Right.
We're good people.
And, Facebook makes things interesting because, before someone, you make friends with someone on Facebook, you can look and see. And that many of friends that I have made before 788 was passed happened because they sent me friend requests and I looked at their pages and they were supporting 788. And even though they weren't using, I was like, those are my
That's
kind
my
of
people.
Those are
Yeah.
people I can trust.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's almost like I was thinking about it yesterday, and some people could put it into a clique, like a cliquish almost. But that's a negative way to look at it. And I was like, no, it's not really that. It's not the same. It's one of those, it's like an open arms type thing.
Yeah.
And
I think family for me is the best word to use. It's a family. Like many people talk about their church families. This is a marijuana family, but it's important. And you're absolutely right. You do not have to have a podcast. You don't have to have a dispensary. You could be a mom of two like me who's stuck at home in quarantine and still make a difference because you've got a computer or a cell phone or even a landline where you could call a friend and check in on them and just, one of those friends. Everyone has one, a high-pain friend or a friend that's going through cancer.
Sure, and like we talked about earlier with our children.
Yes.
Make a difference at home.
Right now in your own home.
Absolutely. Right, start that right there. That's where, we've always known that.
I want to tell you guys a story about the last surgery that I went through, which was in January. I had to go up to Johns Hopkins in Baltimore. And at that point, I had already experienced, because of the time that I spent on opioids, there have been times where I've had to get an epidural before going into surgery because I'm so resistant to opioids and stuff. So I decided when I was going to do this surgery that I was going to recover without the use of opioids. And I did. So instead of coming home from the hospital and recovering for 6 weeks using Percocet every day to help with pain and inflammation and all of these other things, I said, you know what? I'm just going to not fill that prescription and I'm going to go home and use marijuana. And that's what I did. And
congratulations.
Isn't that amazing? But that's how powerful this is.
Well, people don't get it because we talk about this sometimes and this is not to bash modern medicine because I understand the need for it and it does have benefits, but sometimes they're just symptom blocking. Yeah. Where this really goes into the root of what you needed. You needed anti-inflammatory. You needed nerve blocking for that pain, for that area of your body to get better. And those two things literally come out of the ground.
Yep.
So why is that?
So
why is it somewhere else that we're starting that is complete? Like I said, that's what these things do. That is what cannabis does, probably better than anything else.
I can tell you that's the reason that we're starting there is because people make money off of medication, unfortunately. And that's the medical system that we've been left with, and that's what we have right now. So that's why it's so important to have cannabis out there as an option for people. What about people that don't have insurance?
Sure.
What about people that are going through something and they need a way to get medication that doesn't cost them a fortune? This is something that you can grow at your own house. I can't grow it because I'm not that talented, but
you could learn, right? You could have a friend that
cannabis community.
For example, I have a great. We've recently moved in. I have a great dispensary just right down the corner from me. That's a small dispensary that has guys that have definitely, know what they're doing. And then I also have so I've got my one in Arapahoe too. So I've got two trusted places that I can go where I can say, hey, I'm fixing to have surgery. Let's figure out what we need to do.
Yeah.
And that's what we did.
Yeah, that's what I have with Josh. Actually, before I go take tests or go to my doctor or anything like that, I usually go to him. Or if I'm having issues, he's my...
Yeah, and here's the another thing. My doctors are all fully aware that I'm using marijuana, and there's no reason to be ashamed about that either when you're going to see your doctor.
Yeah,
you shouldn't be.
I've got some friends that have been so on the edge of getting their card because they don't want to tell their doctor, and I'm like, I don't understand. Like, is this your body you're treating or his?
Yeah.
Like, I don't get it.
Well, there's fear there of being turned down for things. I get that.
I get it, but my thing would, I mean, and I understand that, and I'm like, I am very empathetic to that, but at the same time, if we're talking about me healing myself, everyone needs to know about everything going on inside this body.
Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely.
And it could also mean if you're afraid to tell your doctor and that's the feelings you're getting from your doctor, it might be time to find a new doctor.
Thank you.
Advocate for yourself.
Right.
Yes.
Well, because and we've mentioned on here before, at the end of the day, you're the one that has to live through it.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't think it was, you were the one that traveled to Baltimore for the surgery and possibly, almost had a spine transplant, so, and
right.
I think you touched on that early in the show was you were basically saying, I have to figure out if this is working for me, not if it's working on paper or not if it's supposed to work, if it is working, because I'm the one living with it. So, I agree
Absolutely.
that, you do. And not just that, I think that, your doctor should be in fear of losing you.
Yeah.
Not the other way around.
Well,
right.
They should be in a spot where they would actually advocate for you, not afraid to lose you.
Right.
That's whenever you're looking at people like a number or whatever you want to call it, okay? You mentioned earlier that money was involved in cannabis, and yes, it is. It has to be. We have to pay for this somehow. People have to have businesses.
Right.
Come on. I hear that all the time, too. That's one of the things that really irks me is people complain that they're not able to get their medicine for free. Well, I'm sorry, but you can grow it for free.
Listen,
But if you want somebody to cultivate it for you and all that, it costs a lot of money to get this the way it needs to be.
Right.
So
and safely.
Yes.
And safely. And full disclosure, a fentanyl patch for me with insurance was $100 a week. $100 a week. Do you know how much marijuana that can buy?
Right. Do you know it's also not something that literally kills people every 10 minutes? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just sometimes.
My doctor was worried I would die of an overdose in my sleep, guys.
And he, at the same time, writing you a prescription for it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So we have to think about these things when we're talking about high pain patients. There has to be another option. And if you're out there suffering and listening to this thinking, hey, there might be another choice for me, listen to my voice when I tell you there is another choice. And the choice has saved my life and changed my life. And it's possible that it could do that for you too.
Absolutely. We say it every time here. Reach out, and we beat the horse to death even today. That this is a community with open arms. Use it.
Absolutely.
Well, not only reach out, Josh. She's saying that there is another way, and that other way is the light. And I know exactly what she's saying.
Right.
I know exactly what she's talking about, and I advocate for that myself.
Yeah.
And I do know that there is another way, and it is a bright, bright way, and it is called cannabis, and it will.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I have to watch what I say, but for me, it has saved my life.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would not be here if it wasn't for cannabis, guys. The suicide pain is, that's a real thing. I was in so much pain that I would rather be dead.
I can't even
I'd rather
imagine.
be dead than be in that much pain.
No one can.
And if it wasn't for my kids, I wouldn't have survived that time. And the hope of marijuana coming through was the other thing that helped me survive that time. So, yeah, it can save your life.
Absolutely. And yours, Cassie, this story hits home with me, especially when you had those thoughts. Should I be here? What's keeping me here? Things like that. Personally, I come from, and I I've lost people that ask those same questions of themselves. And so to me, that's why this is so important. You're here for your kids. I mean, it's truly something changed in your life that didn't in people's that I know.
Right.
You know, so to me, that's moving mountains, and you'll never, ever, ever convince me otherwise.
And what's so powerful to me about your story is that it's not necessarily an issue with someone dealing with some psychological things. This is an issue. This is an issue brought on by something out of your hands happening to your body physically that you were able to change because of cannabis and live the rest of your life. That is outstanding.
Sure.
I mean, it is
thanks, guys.
remarkable.
Well, and I love her experience too, because her journey is strictly medical. You know, she didn't, you know, this was, you approach this strictly as medical, and it is the reason that we are talking to you today. And I echo what James said. I mean, it's phenomenal. It's a miracle.
Yeah, for me, it was most certainly a miracle. It was most certainly a miracle for me. And I hope that as people are listening to this, if maybe just one person would maybe consider it, that wouldn't have considered it before, by listening to a mom who is 38 and doing this openly. That means you can do it too. And if anyone needs support, I'm happy to be support.
I hope you know, Cassie, you are such a huge ray of light in this medical world, you know, both in cannabis and otherwise. But your story is truly, truly inspiring. I love that this plant was here. I love that the timing was right. I hate that you went through what you went through.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it really, really, like, it seems like every week we get this new fire lit underneath James and I mean, you have done that again, and I love that about your story.
Good.
Well, I actually...
Keep that flame going.
Can I ask you a question? I had another question about so the suicide pain. It's interesting to me because I've only heard of that a couple of times. There's an actual syndrome for that. Were you diagnosed with that syndrome?
Yeah. My doctor explained it to me that way. He was saying, like, what you were, I'm sorry, this is a different doctor. She was saying what you were suffering from is suicide pain.
Right.
And when that was said to me, I was like, oh, now everything makes sense. It is suicide pain. This is pain that is so bad that I want to kill myself. And the reason that doctor was explaining that to me was because I was in there bawling my eyes out, talking about, like, I was asking for them to amputate my left leg because it was causing me so much pain, guys. I asked to have my left leg amputated.
Good Lord.
So that's why that came up, is she was explaining to me why I felt the need to have my leg cut off, why my pain was that severe. And that kind of opened, just knowing that that's what it was, kind of opened my mind to, like, okay, you're dealing with something. This is not just something that is you. You're not being a baby. This is something that's really a problem, and you've got to figure out a way to fix this before you can't make it through the day anymore.
Sure, there were two options at that point, right?
Yeah,
Sure.
Exactly.
And
along with, I mean, I've had additional, you know, operations and surgeries through this thing. But again, the day-to-day pain that I experience normally sits like at a level 5. For those of you that are familiar with the pain scale, when I take marijuana, my pain is at a 0. A 0, guys. Can you imagine, for those of you, especially those of you that are 65 and older, to have a day of 0 pain?
You know,
That's what this has done for me.
I'm one of those people that, like, compact things, like when I hear, like, a story or something, and what I hear is at 1 minute suicide pain, the next minute 0 because of a plant.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, I mean, like, and I know that it condensed that story, but that to me, that sentence is so powerful.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. And, you know, I've heard doctors actually say that there is no pain relief. You can't get pain relief from cannabis. Have you heard
No,
that?
that's not true.
Right. Yeah. I think it just went from suicide to zero.
This person right here is a testament
Yeah.
to how stupid that statement is.
Right.
Right.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. The first time that I smoked pot at Dondi Cobb's house, someone who was experienced and could take me under her wing, I literally laid on her couch for hours and just cried out of disbelief of how there was no pain. I just cried, guys. And I just remember telling her, why don't more people know about this? Why aren't more people telling people that this is an option? I can't believe I don't have any pain right now.
Right.
And from that moment on, my life was changed.
Yeah, to me, it's weird because when I hear the story, there was probably so much clarity and confusion for you all at the same time. Confused as to why people aren't using it, but clarity is I'm not hurting. Like, are you kidding me?
Wow. I envision you witnessing something and coming back to the village and standing on a mountain and shouting to the tops of your voice and saying, "Listen, I have something to show you people."
Right.
Yes.
I think she's been on that mountain ever since, and I'm very thankful that she has been.
And I hope more people hear your voice. I really do. So.
Oh, well, I'm happy to talk anytime.
Hey, we're glad. We're so thankful to have you on the show. It's such a powerful story. And I know I touch on this, but it just comes from a place of having kids and things like that. But thank you for being that voice. Thank you for always talking. Thank you for not stopping the conversation and driving those points home, because it worked for you. I mean, it did. And that's all you're really sharing is a personal experience, which is what I love. You're not selling anything else other than what it's done for you.
Nope. Yeah, I'm just happy to share my experience in hopes that other people can find the possibility that maybe this could work for them too after hearing my story.
Yes. Well, Josh, do you have anything else that you would like to?
No, I just want to thank Cassie for being on the show as always, and thanks for doing what you do, Cassie. Keep doing it. Keep it up.
No comments about
Happy to do it.
You guys
happy to be here and sending so much love out to all of your listeners. Everyone, please stay safe and be well.
Listen, thank you so much. I mean, seriously. And, I know we haven't met in person, but I can't wait until we do.
Absolutely.
Well, we're going to have to now.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
Family.
Absolutely. One day we're going to have a big dinner or something.
Yeah.
And we'll just all get together. And
barbecue, please.
And guess what, audience? There's going to be a lot of marijuana smoking going on. Lots of it.
It'll be a good time. It'll be a good time.
Yes, it will. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us once again for another podcast. And remember, the easiest thing that you can do to help us out is share. Just share on social media. Give us a rating on social media. Check us out on our website. Play us in your dispensary. Tell grandma to listen to it. Just share away. That's really the easiest way that you can do something that doesn't cost you any money, and it's very, very, again, baby steps, right?
Yeah, it may help someone in the process, for sure.
Yeah. All right.
Do it right now while you are on your phone and you're listening to this podcast. Do it right now.
This is why we love Cassie.
Yes.
Mama Cassie says, you've already got your phone out listening to the podcast, or you're on your computer listening to the podcast, so share now.
Yes, share and subscribe. Why not just click the subscribe button while you're at it? It's real easy.
Subscribe.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead and subscribe too.
Simple.
We want all of that.
All right, guys. Hey, Josh, any anniversary announcements last minute that you like to come up with?
Nope,
this
just
time?
the one wife. Just the one wife.
Okay, all right. So the last time he pulls it out and I didn't even know about it. So, all right, everybody, love you guys.
Absolutely.
And hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. And thanks for joining us for this podcast. And we'll look forward to the next one.
Yep,
Thanks,
stay
everybody.
medicated, folks.